This video is part 2 of the course overview, but this one focuses more so on the content that will be delivered as opposed to showing you the Moodle site. Let's get started. This is a 4-credit asynchronous course, meaning that although we'll have deadlines throughout the week, you can complete the segments that are required of you at any time. You will not be required to report in or to attend a lecture virtually. The purpose of this course is to introduce you all to the principal components of the American healthcare system and to compare the healthcare system in the United States to healthcare systems around the world. So we start with an overview of the history of the healthcare system and the political context surrounding it. We look at the role of government in healthcare and the organization of healthcare in the United States. We're going to compare the American system to other countries. Some of those countries include Britain, Germany, Japan, France, and Canada. And we're going to pay particular attention to how these systems provide access to quality healthcare at an affordable cost. So this idea of quality, access, and cost are the trifecta, the 3 stools that most healthcare systems stand on. We're also going to look at how these systems treat their vulnerable populations. How do these systems treat people who may struggle with poverty? Persons of different cultures. And a key component of this class will then be to look at the future of the American healthcare system. I'll challenge you to create a healthcare system of your own at the end and to consider the sociopolitical context within which the American healthcare system operates when suggesting the reforms that you are going to propose at the end of the course. We're also going to focus throughout the course on how disparities affect healthcare and how these are social injustices. And those social injustices can amount to structural violence. Those social determinants of health, including racism, can be a structural determinant of health outcomes, and we'll discuss those throughout the course. For those of you enrolled in a Peace and Conflict Studies minor, this course meets the requirements for the Peace and Conflict Studies because we discuss inequities. And we look at how these inequities are structural in nature and how they cause serious problems with interpersonal, community, interstate, or global relations. We're also going to look at processes and strategies with which to address these inequities and how we can try to at least resolve some of this conflict and violence, structural violence that occurs. So the course objectives are going to be to identify and describe the key characteristics and components, as well as the key problems in the current U.S. healthcare system. And so it's my expectation that at the end of the course, you will be able to do just that. You'll be able to explain how health services are financed, how they're organized, how they're accessed by the people that need them, and how the healthcare workforce delivers those services. By the end of this course, you'll be able to analyze the strengths and weaknesses of the way in which the U.S. healthcare system is set up and how it operates. And you're going to be able to talk to access, cost, and quality of care. At the end of the course, you'll be able to even propose solutions that can address the unique challenges faced by some unserved populations or vulnerable populations in accessing quality health care. You also get a deeper understanding of the role that governments play in healthcare and how healthcare professionals themselves contribute to the quality of the healthcare system. You'll be able to articulate why lack of healthcare access can lead to social injustice that is perpetrated against vulnerable populations. You'll also be able to explain the frameworks that we use to compare healthcare systems across the globe. You'll be able to use these models to compare the operations, the achievements, and the weaknesses of the national healthcare systems. Finally, you'll be able to describe the key characteristics and components of the healthcare systems for some of the selected countries that we look at. You'll also be able to pick a country of your own choosing and dissect it in the same way that we dissect the selected countries. I also wanted to point out something since it happened in this slide. So healthcare can be spelled as one word, or it can be spelled as two words. I try to be consistent, but sometimes I revert back to putting it as one word. So I just wanted to point that out, that both uses of the word appear to be correct. There are no required texts for this course that you have to purchase. Every week, I am going to be posting links to PDFs that you can access and download and mark up and keep that will be free. So my goal was to decrease the cost of this course to you. Here's the assessment schedule for this course. Every week, you will be asked to view videos, to do exercises, to review and reflect on some concepts that you may have learned, and to interact with your classmates and your professor. This portion I refer to at times as your participation points, and that is 30% of your grade. Most of it will be based on your efforts and completion. And so if you show up, you do the work, then you get the points here. These will be due 3 times a week, and the first due date will be Wednesday, the second will be Friday, and the third will be Sunday, and we will keep with that schedule. You will then have a country presentation. Your country presentation is due on July 22nd, because I will be displaying that country presentation to the rest of your class during the 4th week. Your country presentation is 30% of your grade. I will describe to you that presentation in more detail in just a moment. Your final project is going to be your healthcare system project. It is 40% of your grade, and it is due on July 31st. I will ask for you to submit during week 3 an outline of your project, and I will provide you with feedback, as well as your classmates will provide you with feedback on it anonymously. Okay. So we're going to talk now a little bit more in depth at each of the three categories of assessments. Okay. So I pretty much covered this already, but the participation grade will be based on the activities that you complete. If you are just asked to view a video, I may have that video in Edpuzzle, and if there are no questions for that video, then that means that Edpuzzle is still tracking whether or not you watched it, and it'll give me a report back. So you will get your points just for watching the video. For the most part, you'll be graded for effort and completion. I just wanted to show you, when you go to Edpuzzle, you can see in the gradebook section, you'll be able to see my comments to you on the questions that you answer in Edpuzzle. And you'll be able to see whether or not you got your full points in Edpuzzle here. So I just want to briefly talk about your country presentations. So this is a class presentation that you will be giving and recording that is an overview of the healthcare system of another nation aside from the U.S. And you get to pick which country that is. Well, you get to pick your top three, and then I'll tell you which one you get out of those three. All right, so week one, you're going to select the country to present, and there's an activity listed under week one that'll help guide you through that. So you are going to be recording a 20 to 30 minute presentation, and I will provide you with detailed instructions on how to record and upload that presentation. As a matter of fact, those detailed instructions are in the Kaltura exercise. If you have any problems because of the technology or the internet capabilities that you have, please let me know as soon as possible, and we will figure out a workaround for you. I will be posting a rubric for you. I'll be posting it under the activity, and I'll let you know when it is posted. The purpose of this assignment is going to be to provide you with the opportunity to be active learners and to work on your presentation skills. It'll also allow your classmates to hear another voice, to learn from somebody other than your professor. So I will post your video for your classmates to view during weeks 3 and 4 as part of the assigned viewing. Now I'm looking for the following things in this presentation. I'm going to be looking for an overview of the types of social services provided in that country. I want to know what their social policy is like. Is there paid maternity leave? Is there a food assistance program? Is there subsidized housing? Is there a minimum standard of living? Disability assistance? Welfare payments? A pension payment scheme for the elderly? You may not know what these things are right now, but you will learn. And I will give you the history of these types of programs in the United States, and I will explain to you how they affect the healthcare system and health outcomes. And then you will need to do the same for the country that you are covering. I want to hear about the history of the healthcare system, including changes and recent developments. How was that healthcare system formed? When was it formed? Was the country clear about what model of healthcare system it was being based on? Then I'd like you to go into more detail about the model of the healthcare system that's being used. And we're going to study models of healthcare systems, and so this will all be clearer then. You might even want to bookmark this video and come back to it later after you learn some of this material. So you're going to want to go over who provides healthcare. Is it private or public, or a mixture of both? You're going to want to talk about how healthcare is financed. Then you're going to want to talk about if long-term care is included in that healthcare system. You're going to talk about the demographics of the current populations of that nation, particularly in looking at the age distribution and the socioeconomic distribution. Then you're going to let me know how much that country spends on healthcare each year. Well, I'd like, if you can, to try to put it in US dollars so we can compare it to how much the US spends on healthcare. So not only are you going to present to me total expenditures, you're going to present per capita costs. Per capita costs are the cost of healthcare per person. The per capita costs account for the population. So that tells us per citizen, how much are they paying? And if possible, if you could also present this in dollar form. Then you're going to go to the World Health Organization rankings. And you're going to look at the major indices of health. And these are outcomes that are measured by the World Health Organization. And they'll tell you things like, what is the infant mortality? What is the life expectancy? These are the types of measures the World Health Organization uses to compare the health outcomes of various countries. And you should find those outcomes for your country. Then I'd like you to analyze what you think the strengths and weaknesses of that system are. And I'd like you to compare it to the US and talk about things like whether or not that country provides greater access to health care. Do they offer better quality of care? And perhaps the cost is higher, or maybe it's lower than the United States. Now, this next point might be a little bit difficult for you to find, and if you can't find it, that's okay. But if you can, I would like you to do your best to see if you can find what the citizens think about their healthcare system in that country. Look for public opinion polls or measures of satisfaction. These are important because oftentimes, as Americans, we have the media tells us that people dislike their healthcare systems or have long wait times. But when you look at the polls that are done in those countries, you find that people are largely satisfied with their healthcare system. In the United States, we are largely unsatisfied with our healthcare system. So I'd like you to go try to find polls that measure satisfaction. Then I'd like you to look to see what are the current problems in the healthcare system as the country identifies it, or as identified in news in that country, right? Try to identify what the major problems are. And then finally, I'd like you to give me suggestions for how you think that healthcare system could be improved. Does it need additional funding? Does it need better structure? Does it need more providers? Does it need to have better coordination with social services, right? What do you think are needed for that system to improve? So I already went over this last video, so I'm going to skip over. I was just showing you the various icons here, but we already went over that. So I'm going to briefly talk about your healthcare systems project, your final project. For this project, you're going to be designing your own healthcare system for the United States. It can be based on the current system. It can be an entirely new system. But you're going to draw on everything that you've learned in this course when you design this healthcare system. You can model this healthcare system after another country. But if you do, you need to consider the values and needs of the American people in designing your system. And I'm going to talk about these values in class 2. So in your paper to me, so your paper is going to be a maximum of 3,000 words. So if you can be brief, then that is absolutely fine. But you're going to go over what the role of the federal, state, and local governments are going to be. What is the role of health insurance companies, employers, providers, consumers? How will this healthcare be paid for or financed? What is the advantage of your system over the existing one? So you're going to argue here for your system. And you can think of it as if you were trying to convince a policymaker to adopt your system. You're going to want to state your arguments, and you're going to want to list evidence that supports why your arguments are true, why this system is good for the American people. Then I'm going to want you to identify the biggest criticisms that you think that opponents would have. And I want you to address these criticisms. How would you respond to people that bring up these criticisms? Finally, you're going to need to make sure you talk about access to health care, how your system is going to decrease costs, and how it's going to improve quality. When you talk about access, you're going to want to make sure that you talk about increasing access to vulnerable populations, right? How is it going to improve increased access to vulnerable populations as well as the general population of Americans? When you talk about quality, how is it going to improve the quality of healthcare received by vulnerable populations? How is it going to address issues of racism, of income inequality, of cultural biases that are embedded in a system that can be structural determinants of health? How are you going to address those in your healthcare system? So you'll hear more about your healthcare systems project as it gets closer, but I wanted to go over it so you can start to, when you're listening to the material, make notes of what to remember for your project. So week 3, you're going to submit an outline to your project, and you're going to get feedback from 2 peers. You'll also be required to give feedback to 2 of your classmates, but this is all going to be anonymous, okay? I will also give you feedback. I actually find that peer feedback is often very close to the feedback that I give you, so I think it's a good exercise for you to try to see if you can identify logical holes in the healthcare systems proposed. All right. Now, just quickly talk about the time commitment again. I'm going to give you the best estimated average that I am going to be able to give you based on how long I think the activity will take. It is a very condensed term, so it's supposed to average out to 20 hours of instructor-led activities a week and 40 hours of out-of-class activities per week. That is what we're required to do, but I think that my estimate of how long it takes you to do things may be longer than how long it actually takes you to do things. So just keep that in mind. I'll do my best to make it as entertaining as possible and to try to make videos shorter, significantly shorter than this one. All right. Bear in mind that you are expected to participate in the course approximately 4 days a week. Okay. The course is 4 days long, so 4 weeks long. Lastly, I want to spend some time going over what the weekly focus will be in each week, and this will help you be able to compartmentalize the knowledge that you get. So this is the framework we're using in this course. In week 1, we're going to talk about you're going to talk about social policy and government structure and different concepts that will give you the framework for understanding healthcare systems. We're also going to discuss the government's role in healthcare in the U.S., and we're going to talk about the U.S. healthcare system structure. In week 2, we're going to then talk about the healthcare systems in other countries. We're going to look at models of healthcare systems. We're going to talk about population health and how that differs from medical care. Week 3, we're going to talk about the trifecta, the 3 pillars of the ACA, and that is the access, cost, and quality. These are our 3 major components of all healthcare systems. Then in week 4, we're going to talk about the future of U.S. healthcare, as you're going to get to see each other's presentations and get to think about what healthcare around the world looks like. And that is it for this video. I hope you enjoy this course.